and welcome to a very special cover story. Joining me is Seema Goswami. She's an author, a columnist, and commentator. She's out with the latest book. I've got it with me, in fact, Madam Prime Minister. It's a sequel to her earlier book, Racecourse Road. It's a political thriller set in New Delhi, in the capital heart of New Delhi, in fact, heart of politics. And its the story is about a 29-year-old woman who becomes India's woman prime minister. But I'm going to let Seema tell you more about the book. You, of course, also be reading her columns in the Brunch in the Hindustan Times, the Sunday paper. But Seema, welcome to this conversation and congratulations. You got a book out of lockdown.
Thank you so much. Yes, I have to admit the lockdown made it so much simpler because there were no distractions, nowhere to go, nothing to do. So every afternoon I would hunker down with my book and I managed to finish it in time. And then, of course, I sent it to Penguin, but then we kept holding on to it, hoping that we would release it when the lockdowns were over and real life had returned and we could do real events and not virtual Zooms all the time, but actual events to launch it. But lo and behold, the book is out and Omicron is back with a vengeance. So I don't know how that timing worked out really, but that's how it is.
Look at the brighter side. Everybody's at home and looking for a good book to read, especially on a cold winter's afternoon.
Yeah,
I think this is the right answer.
That's a good way to look at it, actually. Yeah. But it's always nice to have people going to bookshops and, buying the books. Somehow, I mean, I do a lot of my shopping online. I do a lot of Kindle reading as well. But there's something very special about going to your favorite bookstore and rifling through the books and actually holding it, especially when your own book is out. You want to go to the bookstore and see it in the window. And it's a special kind of thrill. You don't have that same thrill when you see it on Amazon or Kindle somehow. But it is what it is. So I'm just grateful the book is out and people are reading it and ordering it. And that's all you can hope for, really.
In fact, the sequel was in the works, no, after Racecourse Road, and I'm hoping there will be another one after this because there is. You ended on a very tantalizing note. I'm not going to hopefully reveal the plot here, but a little bit about the book. The fact that you chose a woman protagonist, is my favorite question: is she modeled after anyone? Is there anyone in mind?
The moment you have a female protagonist and you end up making her prime minister, everybody immediately leaves to Priyanka Gandhi. Yeah. But the truth is, and you've read both books, you read Racecourse Road and you read Madam Prime Minister, the character has nothing at all to do with Priyanka Gandhi at all. It's a very different book. And as far as I could, I tried to not base my books on real characters. I mean, there are shades of people. There are echoes of events that took place in real time. That's there in the book. But I've tried to create characters who are like fully realized people in their own right, so that I know people will play the guessing game and say, who is this and who's B and this is based on C and this is what happened and this is whatever. But the truth is that they are characters which are characters in their own right. And I think in today's circumstances, it's best not to base it on anybody real life, because the next thing that, be a demonstration outside your house or something by some political party or the other. So there's safety in being discreet.
That's something I think even those who want to make it, which I can see it happening probably, make it into a movie would be very interested in, the OTT people, because they're always worried about the demonstrations and some controversial, canning the show. So that is definitely not there in the book.
So, because this is a book that is post Rajiv Gandhi, post Manmohan Singh, post Narendra Modi. Everybody's come and gone, and this is set in like the distant future at some point. So there's nothing to do with real politics. But, unfortunately, whenever you write something, or at least that's the way it's turned out for me. Like in my last book, I wrote about an arms deal scandal. And while I was writing it, nothing was happening. By the time the book came out, Rafale had come. So everybody assumes that, these are based on real life events. But the truth is that they're not. They're actually something that I've thought of earlier. If anything, my arms scandal in Racecourse Road was based on Bofors, not on Rafale. And the same thing with this book. I've written about various things about a year back, and now those things are coming to fruition in real life. And a lot of people are calling me. I think you also made the point that have you based it on some recent election? Yeah.
Yeah, the Mamta Banerjee type of character. I think you saw her coming, didn't you?
No, actually, I didn't. I mean, I wrote it a long time ago. It's just that it's taken a long time to be kind of published and to be in the public domain. And it's just so happens that I've been very prescient, and whatever I've written has somehow come to light. But I think the best thing to do is just write your own story, tell and get your characters doing their own thing. That's the only way really to go about it now.
I was hoping that, or rather, I thought that rather Dishy finance minister was based on Raghuram Rajan, or there were tinges of him over there.
Well, Raghuram Rajan is a bit old, no?
Yeah, but the dry humor, the background of coming from a
To tell you the truth, Priya, I have never met Raghuram Rajan in my life. So I have no idea what his humor is like, or I'm sure he's a very humorous man with a nice line and dry wit, but I have no experience of it. But I agree, because of his background, because he's finance minister and he's got a character, which is Alok Ray, has a background in finance and has come from abroad. A lot of people will make those kind of, parallels between Raghuram Rajan. But I mean, he's a very good looking man, and I'm sure he's a very well read and
has a good sense of humor.
But Alok Ray is not really based on him, no.
Okay, before we get any more spoilers, one last question. This story of, since people who read Racecourse Road, they know basically who the family is based on. There are two brothers and a sister. And there is, the whole battle as to which sibling is most suited. And it turns out to be the sister in the end.
Yeah.
Now, there are shades of this within the Gandhi family, right? So people will ask you that question, even though you played it safe and made them two brothers instead of one. But apart from that,
you're missing out that they're supposed to be step siblings also. So the dynamic is actually very different, because it's like a step family, and the brothers don't really like the sister, and there's that kind of dynamic in which they're kind of against each other. Whereas with the Gandhis, whatever else you may think, the brother and sister are very close. You know that too. You've dealt with them and interacted with them for a long time. There's a depth of understanding. There's a lot of sibling closeness there. So I agree that the sibling character, you can say, is there's another sibling character in real life politics. But I think the interpersonal relationship, the dynamics are a little bit different. But of course, you're right. When people read the book, the first thing they think of is Rahul Gandhi, Priyanka Gandhi. Thankfully, they don't think of Narendra Modi, but give it time.
The leader of opposition, I thought there were shades on him. Though, of course, when he was milking his goats, I thought of Lalu Yadav. But
exactly,
I think I'm letting on too much about the book. But on a more distinct question, do you think India is ready for a young prime minister? Forget woman or man. Your prime minister is 29 years old. We've always had people who are, 70 and plus.
Yeah, but I think we are a very young population, and I think we are skewing younger with every generation. But it's very strange that despite being such a young generation, we still, the cult figure in our country is still Mr. Modi, who's like in his 70s. So I think my book is an idealized world in which the cult figure turns out to be somebody who's younger, with whom the youth can actually identify with, and who's of that age group. But, in real life, probably nobody 29 years old would become prime minister, but this ain't real life.
Well, we're hoping and waiting and seeing what happens. I think the idea is the person has to think young, or at least be, if not biologically, at least,
Yeah, I agree. There has to be, the leadership has to kind of think, and also think about the young people's interests, not just, the way it is. But
what the events also I find are very they're fast paced and they're very real. They're what prime ministers today face. Terrorism I think is at the bulk of 2 or 3 of the events. Yeah. There is also in terms of corruption, they use modern day methods to track down a fugitive, which I found very interesting. So the person has to be someone who is up with the new age and who's knows.
Actually, what I wanted to convey in the book, Priya, was also how a prime minister operates in the real world. Like, it's not just one thing. It's not just the economy. It's not just terrorism. It's not just A, B, C, D. There are so many differing things that are competing for your time. And you really have to be a multitasker. You really have to have your, eye on the ball. You really have to have a good team around you to kind of carry you through. It's a really tough job. And especially in the case of Madam Prime Minister, she's a young person who doesn't have much of a grounding in administration, like Rahul Gandhi, as you would say, has never been a minister before. And she's thrown into the deep end. And how she copes with, all the stuff that is constantly coming at her, whether it's terrorism, whether it's corruption, whether it's the, investigation into the assassination of her father, which is how she became prime minister, because her father was assassinated. So it's really, I've tried to give a flavor of how the Delhi political scene operates, the various pulls and pressures of government, and how you can kind of work your way through them.
And also the media, that's an interesting side plot. But I love the way you've adapted the traditional rivalries into a slightly different touch in terms of with who's sympathizing with whom. It's a very interesting way of doing it. I love that for the readers, I think.
That's actually the most fun parts for me to write are the media bits, because there's a lot I think about the media, and a lot of problems I have with the way the media is working these days, especially television media, which is what is portrayed in the book. And because you can't really talk about it in real life, because there is a sense that dog shouldn't eat dog and media shouldn't be criticizing each other. But when you're writing fiction, then all those things fall away, and you can actually, what you really think about it can actually come out through the voice of a fictional character and through the device of a fictional plot. And that was actually one of my favorite bits to write. So there are these two rival anchors. There's Gaurav Agnihotri, who's like a very right-wing rabbit guy, who's always kind of
prizes for guessing who it is. Which one? There's so many these days.
There's so many, actually. And then there's a female journalist who's kind of very bright and spunky and whatever. And of course, when my first book came out, everybody said it was based on Barkha Dutt, though actually it's not really. But now Barkha is, of course, doing very different things with digital media and Mojo. So, of course, those comparisons have kind of worn away. But you know how it is. You write a book like this and everybody wants to identify who the character is. But I think the media bits will be interesting for anybody who's a little bit dejected and disillusioned with the way the world of media has become these days. Because I think most of us are, because when we grew up, media was about news. And now it's really about views and nothing more than that.
The ironic tagline. In fact, I think you write very nice after one particular debate where views were held forth rather than news, and he ends the show by saying, "This is where you come for news and not news." And you said something, what? Irony got one last kick or something.
Yes, absolutely.
With that tagline. I totally agree with that. Hello and welcome back to a cover story conversation with Seema Goswami, who's just out with the latest book. I've in fact just finished reading it, Madam Prime Minister. So, Madam Author, very good book, I must say.
Thank you very much.
But, today, now in the second half, I really want to talk to you about your columns, which you've been writing, and living with the uncertainty of it all I think that's a theme we've really been exploring in different ways in the last year.
Ever since COVID came, Priya, nothing really happened in the world. You didn't go out, you didn't meet people. There was it's like the world came to a standstill. And what do you write about when you're doing a column like this? You have to write about what you're living through. And what we were living through was actually an unprecedented time. I mean, a pandemic that has come after 100 years. And at that point, when it started, I thought maybe in another 6 months, it will be over. Then it was 8 months, then it was a year. Now it's close to 2 years that we've been stuck at home. And, I just feel that everybody is going through this kind of situation in which you don't know what the future will bring. You don't know whether next week you'll be able to meet people or whether there'll be a lockdown. You don't know whether you're going to test positive for COVID day after or whatever. I mean, just before I came on the show, I have heard of 3 people who tested positive for COVID already. There's Omicron happening. And I just thought that it's really no point talking about anything else to readers, because all that people are really concerned about and living through is COVID. And sometimes it gets tough because, finding a new angle on it every 2 weeks is not easy. But I think once you do find the angle, then it's very rewarding, because then people write back on Twitter and they DM you on Instagram and they say, oh, I felt the same way and this is what happened to me. And that kind of creates a conversation, which is great fun for me.
But simple things like, because we're all sitting at home, so we have to find our entertainment within these four walls. So you've written, what I enjoyed is finding that little corner in the balcony or in the, your own corner, or just turning out your cupboards and just redoing your house, little things like that, I think, which everybody totally identified with in that sense.
Absolutely. In fact, I find that, what COVID has really taught me is that it's taught me to use my inner resources. Like, I can now spend like the whole day just sitting in a chair and reading a good book and not worry about not being able to go out or not. And the most, I mean, during the lockdown, the only time I went out was to my balcony. So you learn to kind of, make the most of what you have. All these years, I never bothered to buy plants for my balcony. It's only after the lockdown that I started buying frangipani and jasmine and flowering plants and trying to make it look good, because you just appreciate what you have. Otherwise, you just take it for granted.
And also I remember one piece you did on shopping, the online shopping, which I don't think you're very fond of, right? You were missing the shops, but this is also something which a lot of my friends' moms, they got Amazon for the first time. It's
Yeah. No, Amazon, I don't mind Amazon for books. Like I even buy my pots and pans on Amazon. That is fine. But clothes, I can't do on Amazon.
Which is, in fact, I've been talking to a lot of designers also and wondering, because now that everything is gone online, but how do you sell even bridal wear, chodo, even normal wear? How do you sell online? Because the clothes are something, as you write,
You
have
can't
to.
feel it. You can't try it on to see how it falls on you. And I know that everybody says you can return it. It's not a problem. But frankly, it takes out the fun of shopping for clothes, going through a rack, feeling the stuff and seeing what, feels good on you. I think you need to go to shops for that. But I think soon we'll be back to shopping online.
I think the way it's heading, yes. And also relationships and meeting people. We are in the middle of a holiday season. I think everybody had plans. You also had plans. You didn't cancel. Now it's all, and also dialing back. You're sitting at home and the maximum you meet people. Now I think you're taking the effort to meet people you really want to meet. That's the one good takeaway also.
What is the scary thing for me, Priya, is that we've stopped seeing each other as human beings. We see each other as a COVID threat. Like, you're sitting in a restaurant and somebody who's at the next table, if they come up to you without a mask, you keep thinking, oh my God, I hope he hasn't got COVID. I hope he's fine. And, stuff like that. So I guess, it's made us so scared of the outside world that our bubbles have become smaller and smaller. There's just like 4 or 5 people who we are confident of meeting because we know they're taking precautions. They're not, going out and about, not partying, going to big society weddings and stuff like that. But our world has just become really, really small.
The sense of familiar, is it also coming into what you're picking up and reading? I mean, you write about rereading old books or watching old shows again, which there's also that.
It's a big comfort, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the sense of comfort. I think nobody. So how do you see things progressing in the next? Is that going to be now the new social? Even when COVID lifts up, I think there is the new bubble that is set in. Or we just need the go ahead, and then the weddings and tamasha starts.
I think a lot of people have actually used this time when there was a lockdown and when there was COVID or whatever to kind of have smaller events and have smaller weddings. They've used it as an opportunity because then you can not invite the whole world and nobody kind of, gets angry or upset that, shadi mein nahi bulaya and, that kind of thing. So it's actually a good time to get all these celebrations out of the way and invite just 50 people who you really care about, which I think is the best way to go about it. But, I feel that the moment COVID lifts, there's such a lot of pent up demand that we are going to see the 2000 person wedding again. We are going to see the 1000 birthday party again, because people are just cooped up at home and they kind of, want to do these sort of things. And the moment it lifts up, like before Omicron came, you saw this huge surge in F&B. All restaurants were full, hotels were full, and flights were full. So I think there is a lot of pent up demand and it will come up again and again.
Also, a little bit in all things being equal, I want to talk to you about this Lit Fest. They now we're seeing, is that the new industry? Earlier on, I remember there were, you always wanted something extra. So television channels started organizing conclaves where we used to call, for live events where there could be some interaction with politicians, with writers. Now that has been overtaken by event man. Like I'm noticing every other this thing there is a Lit Fest. First there were 1 or 3 or 4 standard Lit Fests that we went to. Now there's a dime a dozen. It's something that's coming up. You see big politicians going for it. You see writers, authors. It's becoming the next pass and circuit is the Lit Fest.
But that's a good thing, no? At least authors get to feel like rock stars for once, no? They get to sit on stage and be interviewed and get people coming and asking for their books to be signed and all. Frankly, as far as I am concerned, there can't be too many Lit Fests. The more, the merrier.
That's what this thing. But I've just seen that everywhere you go now, and it's become. It's not just politicians who write books. Politicians are also, coming to that. Even those who've never written a book or even read a book, but they come to Lit Fest, I think, just to because that's now where
it's become what the 80s fashion show used to be. It's the place to be seen at. Because even if you've never read a book, you still want to be seen at a Lit Fest, which is a good thing, frankly. I'm all for it.
But which also reminds me, you always end your year with your columns rather with the top 5 books of the year. So in terms of top 5 books, before that, I want to also ask you the top 5 shows that you watched this year that you've enjoyed.
Oh my gosh, there's so many. Well, the latest one which I just finished seeing was, of course, Succession, which was a brilliant, brilliant show. I just loved it. And the ending was just out of the world. The other shows, my God, I've seen so many. I can't even remember which ones I've seen now. All I seem to do is watch Netflix and Amazon Prime in the evenings. But I've actually gone back and also rewatched, as you said, a lot of shows because they are like my comfort factor. So I went back and rewatched all of Sopranos because it was something that I really enjoyed when it first came out, and it was as good as I remembered it. The other thing that I watch all the time is, of course, Friends, which is one of my perennial favorites. So whenever I have like a half an hour free, I watch one episode and I feel very happy about it because I remember all the dialogues by heart. I know when to laugh and when to cry. And apart from that, the newer shows, I actually like the first series of Arya a lot. I thought Sushmita Sen was very good in that. And what else have I seen recently? I think that's about it.
And books.
Which ones have you liked?
I think mostly Money Heist. Of course,
I never got into Money Heist, so everybody loves it.
Yeah, I love it totally. And I'm saving that. That's my New Year's Eve program, by the way.
Okay.
That's what I'm going to be watching. And I think, most I agree with you in terms of serials that there's been. Books wise now.
Which are my top 5 books? Okay,
this year that have come out this year. New ones.
New ones. Okay, the last one I read was Smriti Irani's Lal Salam, which is actually a very good book. When I picked it up, I wasn't sure what it would be because, I know Smriti on a personal level, but I never thought that she would write such an amazing book because it's really detailed and the plot is very good. And there's like a final twist, which comes as a complete surprise. So I was really, really pleasantly surprised by that. I also enjoyed Namita Gokhale's The Blind Matriarch a lot. I don't know if you read it, but it was written during the lockdown period, and it's about this kind of extended joint family and how they cope with COVID. And, that whole period of the lockdown and, when we were all stuck at home and various older people were getting it. And, it's all about the way the family copes, the interpersonal relationships, the stresses or whatever that come in living in a joint household. And I thought it was very beautifully done without being overly melodramatic or whatever. I enjoyed that. Funnily enough, I enjoyed Shivani Sibbal's book also, who's Namita Gokhale's daughter, but she's come out with her debut book, which is Equations, which is a very Delhi book. It's about this very wealthy family in which there's this young boy who grows up as the servant of the house along with a young master, and how the power equations change as they grow up because the guy who's like the the servant grows up to be an influential man, and the rich man gradually loses his power and wealth. And those kind of equations, how they change and whatever, I thought it had a microcosm of Delhi in it, which I really enjoyed, because it was something that we've all experienced, in our own lives, having grown up and spent time over here. Apart from that, I loved Huma Abedin's autobiography, which is called Both And, which I thought was a very well written book and very honest book, in which she talks about the breakdown of her marriage and how she was humiliated because her husband was caught in a sexting scandal and stuff like that. I thought it was a very brave book to write, and I really enjoyed reading that. Other than that, I'm trying to think, what else have I read recently? How many did I give you? 4?
4, I think, yeah.
Let's keep it at 4.
Let's keep it 4. You're not playing favorites and not mentioning A Rude Life, I can see, Seema.
Rude
Life. You're being politically correct.
That's true. That's true.
Being a rude wife, are you?
That's true. My husband's memoir came out, A Rude Life. You know why I didn't mention it is because I've been reading it while it was being written. So somehow I don't think of it as of coming out this year, because I've been reading it for the past 2 years as it's been written. And then I proofread it, and then I read the galleys and whatever. So I think by now I've read it about 10 times. And somehow it doesn't occur to me that it's a book that came out this year. But of course, you're right. And it was a very brilliant book, even if I'm saying so. But okay. I'm sure you agree.
Yes. But the last thing is, if you were supposed to, if I was, you don't write biographies, but if there was someone, which biography would you like to read? Which Indian politicians you think would make a fascinating read?
Sonia Gandhi.
Sonia Gandhi.
What a life she's led. I mean, growing up in a small town in Italy, meeting a man from India in Cambridge, falling in love, giving up everything that you've known to come as a 19-year-old to live in India. And the India of that time was not like the India of today, where you have everything and, it's not very different from living in a Western world. It was very, very different. And coming to live in a prime minister's family, in a political household, not speaking the language, and then having the tragedy of your husband's death strike, and then coming back from that and, reviving your party, leading it to victory in 2 elections, refusing to become prime minister. I think it's a fascinating story.
That one, and the one I would also like to read is the Amit Shah Modi equation. I mean, I don't think anybody's been able to
write that. Nobody knows anything.
Well, if they talk, this is Sonia Gandhi also talks.
only Amit Shah can write that. Nobody else can. And I don't think
There's a note for our publishers there. But on that note, Seema Goswami, thank you so much and congratulations on your book once more, and wish you a happy and safe New Year.
Thank you so much, Priya. Thank you for having me.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.